Hey everybody, I'm Justin with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're going to be taking a closer look and installing these low-profile fender flares available for your 21 and newer F-150. Now, these particular flares are going to be a great choice for the truck owners out there looking to add a very subtle factory-inspired flare to add a little bit more coverage or protection for the side while also adding a different appearance at the same time thanks to that black contrast. Now, this set of 4 flares, of course, will feature that durable automotive grade ABS plastic, that matte black color right out of the box, which is paintable if you did want to color match these things down the road, and of course all of the hardware needed for the install for right around that mid $300 price point. So if you're thinking about adding a set of flares to your F-150 and you've browsed your options here on the site, well, you'll notice there are quite a few different options, a majority of which are going to be pretty aggressive overall. Now, what I mean by that is those aggressive flares typically offer a bunch of coverage for an aggressive offset, or maybe for a really, pokey kind of wheel and tire combination. And those flares a lot of times too will also kick in things like that bolt-on appearance thanks to the included hardware. Now, while this is certainly a very, very popular look with a lot of truck owners out there, there's still a lot of truck owners who prefer the less is more approach and maybe prefer just to add that contrast of a subtle black flare, but keep things pretty mild in regards to styling. Now, with that being said, these are certainly going to be pretty mild there. They're not going to add a ton of coverage like those pocket style flares. So if you are running a stock or a flush offset, these are certainly going to be a great choice. Now, on the other hand, again, if you are still running a stock or a flush offset, in my opinion, there's really nothing worse than adding those super wide flares while still maintaining that stock stance. I think it just makes the truck look a little goofy, and in fact, a lot of my friends and I kind of joke, it looks like the truck kind of skipped leg day. So again, if you have those super wide tires, wheels, a lot of offset, then sure, going with a wider flare certainly makes a lot of sense. But on the other hand, if you don't, something like this I think is a much better fit. Now, with all that being said, there are still some coverage benefits to these options here on the table today. We're talking maybe an extra ½ inch to an inch or so off of the fender, and that's pretty much it, guys. Nowhere near the 3+ inches or more with those other pocket style flares that we talked about a little bit earlier. Now, another thing I do like about these particular options, again, is that they are flush, they're free from any bolts or rivets, and that's kind of where that factory inspired looks come from, because again, with these things on, there's really not a huge difference in appearance outside of that color contrast, of course, but they're going to be much more subdued compared to the bolt-on options that tend to dominate the category. Now, aside from that low profile look we keep harping on here in this video, F-150 owners do also have some options to consider here when it comes to final appearance. Now, right out of the box, of course, guys, you are getting this matte black smooth finish. Definitely going to offer that nice color contrast on any F-150 out there, outside of black, of course. But again, if you're not a big fan of that color contrast, or you just wanted to really crank up that factory-inspired styling even further, you could always have these things color matched to your rig at home. Keep in mind though, if that is a look you wanted to go for eventually, that is something you'd have to take care of on your own. Link up with your local paint or body shop to color match these things, as we do not currently offer a set of flares on the site that deliver this OE style with a color match finish right out of the box. Now, before we wrap up the construction segment here, guys, we just want to remind you this is a very smooth automotive grade ABS plastic or polypropylene, which is going to be equal parts durable and also very, very lightweight. Now, that material does also have a baked in UV coating here, guys, and that's going to prevent these things from fading on you over the years. You know the deal there, right? You've seen maybe an older truck on the road has a black set of flares, but that black has kind of turned gray, a little bit ashy. It's not a very good look, let's face it. So the fact that these do come with a bit of a UV coating kind of baked in to protect that black finish over the years, definitely dig that. Last but not least here, another big thing I like about these flares, they're backed by a limited lifetime warranty, and that's against any possible defects over the years. Finally here, guys, again, also got to mention this kit does include all 4 flares. Yes, I know I'm only showing you on the table here with 2 flares today. Can't fit all 4, but you do get all 4 with this kit. and of course all of the hardware, and also the weather stripping that goes between the flare and the fender. That's also included, and that makes for a much more finished look after the install. Now moving into our pricing segment here, guys, you're gonna look at the mid $300 ballpark for this set of 4 flares, and that's gonna make them somewhat affordable when compared to other options in the category, other similar options from companies like Bushwhacker, Air Design, or even Rough Country. And that's gonna be when we're talking about a similar low profile option and not those more aggressive pocket flares. Now, if you did want to shop around a little bit, you can find color matched options right out of the box. They're not going to deliver this very subtle low profile look, but they are available. So at the end of the day, guys, be sure you're browsing our entire selection here at AT for your F-150 before making your final choice. All right, last but not least, let's move into our install segment here for the video. Site's gonna call this a pretty strong 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you, I would say, at least an hour to complete from start to finish, maybe a little bit more if you're the type of owner who really likes to take your time. But now we're gonna throw it out to the guys in the shop for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown. Check it out.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, a clip remover tool, diagonal cutters, a marker, painter's tape, a Phillips head screwdriver, 7mm socket, and some microfiber towels. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a set of fender flares on our F-150, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do on the front is to mount our bracket. Now we're gonna be removing pretty much every bolt from our wheel well to install this. The only one we're not going to be doing is the very last one on our lower trim. So we'll grab a 7mm socket, take all of these bolts out. So we have 4 bolts that are on the inner lip of our fender here. So we'll grab a 7mm socket and take these out. And then we'll get the first one on our lower trim and skip this last one. Next, we're gonna have to remove this little rock guard because our fender flare will be covering it. So we have 2 more 7mm bolts. We'll grab a 7mm socket to remove these. And then we also have 1 push clip at the bottom here that we can get behind with a clip remover tool and pop that off. Next, we can install our bracket. We have 4 holes that are going to line up with the 4 bolts in our arch. So we'll take our factory bolts and thread those in. Now once we have those threaded into place, we can come back with our 7mm socket and tighten them down. Now next, before we get to mounting our flares, we need to install our weather strip on the outer edge. This is going to prevent scratching the paint as well as give it a seal. So we have a strip of double-sided tape inside. We're going to peel that backing off and then lay it around the edge that's going to sit against our paint. Now once you get to the other end, you can use a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off your excess. And then we'll repeat that same process for our other 3 flares. Now we have one more hole in our fender flare than we do in our fender well. So I've got some blue masking tape down here. We're gonna have to hold our flare up and make a Sharpie mark where we're putting down this clip. You can also use a grease marker if you have one. So we'll hold this up and get everything lined up. And then I'll make my mark. So now with our mark made, we have this sticker included in the kit that we can put down there so that we don't scratch our paint with the clip. So we'll stick that on. And then we can slide our clip right over top. So now we're ready to mount our flare. Now in all of the U-clip locations, we're gonna be using these long screws that are included in the kit. Now working our way to the back, we can reinstall our 2 factory bolts. Now I'll take a 7mm socket and tighten these 2 down. Now we can go back up front and reinstall that factory bolt and tighten it down with a 7mm socket. And now we can go back with a short Phillips head screwdriver and tighten down our screws. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now moving on to the rear, we're gonna start at the front side of our wheel well. We have 2 7mm bolts holding in this rock guard. There's also a push clip at the bottom. Ours is broken off, so we're not gonna be removing that, but you can grab a clip remover tool for that one. I've got a 7mm socket to get out our 2 bolts. Next, on the back side of our wheel well, we need to remove these 2 push clips. So I've got a clip remover tool to pop these out. So now, just like on the front, we have a couple holes in our fender flare that don't line up to holes in the fender well. So I've got some painter's tape here. We're gonna line up our fender flare and then take a marker to make a mark where we need to install our clip. So now we can take our pad and line that up with our mark. And then once we have that in place, we're going to be installing this S-clip. And then we'll do that same thing for our other two marks. So now we can raise up our flare and we're going to be installing the smaller screws included in the kit. Next, we can reinstall our two factory screws at the front of our wheel well. And then we'll take our 7mm socket and tighten those down. And now lastly, we can come to the back and reinstall our two push clips. And then we can repeat that whole process on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the fender flares for your 2021 and newer F-150, excluding Raptor. Thank you for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.